What's up, everyone? Welcome to another late night edition of the David Carson Show. Think I'll finally get on time tomorrow, but I figured I might as well stream today. Get the stories from the day done. Why not? But yeah, no drink tonight. It's Sunday, so just gonna take it easy, have some fun, and yeah, go over some stories. What do we have today? Fired Ukrainian Prosecutor Viktor Shokin believes the Bidens took a bribe. So even he thinks they took bribes. At least 3 Marines dead, 20 injured during a military exercise in Australia. I thought this was really interesting because for whatever reason, this stuff just keeps happening. I don't know why. What is this, third, fourth time in the last year there's been a military accident involving the United States? Strange. Biden admin pushing to limit alcohol consumption to 2 drinks per week. Oh, what a joker. Ramaswamy says Ramaswamy says he would have certified the 2020 election. I have a lot to say about that. CNN launching another streaming service after the last one completely failed. Why? I don't know, but we'll dive into the details. Twitter, also known now as X, CEO details the most major changes Elon Musk is bringing to the platform. Dwight, Schrute, actor from The Office, slams rich men north of Richmond. New study shows the harms on children from using tablets for extended periods of time. NBC News claims climate change lockdowns are a conspiracy after they championed them in the past. And what does Putin get from Snowden for protecting him? Got all that and more coming up today on the David Carson Show. But let's get into the leading story that I thought was very interesting. Fired Ukrainian Prosecutor Viktor Shokin believes the Bidens took bribes. Let's play a clip.
Either Joe Biden is the most clever person in the world and did nothing wrong, or he's the dumbest, did something wrong, and
I know I'll put my vote
in 2018. Take a listen here.
I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Oh, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid.
Now, as the investigation by David Weiss goes deeper into the Hunter Biden business dealings overseas, is that going to possibly get him in trouble?
Well, it remains to be seen if David Weiss's investigation is going deeper on anything, because he seems to not want to investigate or prosecute anyone
he worked with
named Biden.
Hunter's brother.
We'll see if that changes. I'm skeptical.
Joe Biden's son.
I think it's important to remember that not only did Joe Biden want that prosecutor who Brian has on, and we were talking about this in the break, Brian Kilmeade, big get for him coming up in the next hour, this Shokin interview. It is wild that no one has talked to this man, given his significance on this issue. We've known about it for years at this point.
They talked to him now, though.
But it wasn't just Joe Biden who successfully used U.S. foreign policy levers to get this man fired and wanted this man fired. The people paying Joe Biden's son Hunter $1 million a year for no apparent reason, they wanted this man fired, and they got their wish, knowing that they were employing the son of the big guy who then swooped in and got the deal done. Whether that is evidence, rock solid evidence or lockdown evidence of bribery, we're not quite there in that final link, but there is this document that the FBI had and buried for a while, where one of their confidential trusted informants says that's exactly what happened. That's the allegation. And some of the other claims from that document have been corroborated by the FBI and others. So this is absolutely legitimate and an active question. And frankly, everyone in the media should be following it and chasing it down. And of course, that's not the case in most cases, I would say.
It's a great point. And we're just now learning these things. And Molly, so Shokin himself says, I don't have the exact hard facts, but I believe in my experience that there was a bribe. And he talks about believing that he knows he was fired because of his investigation into Burisma. Listen, here's a little more of Brian's interview.
Wow.
I have said repeatedly in my previous interviews that Poroshenko fired me at the insistence of the then Vice President Biden because I was investigating Burisma. Because he understood, and so did Vice President Biden, that had I continued to oversee the Burisma investigation, we would have found the facts about the corrupt activities that they were engaging in that included both Hunter Biden and Devin Archer and others.
Molly, what do you make of this?
Well, it's just a stunning development here. Not stunning for many people who lived through the first impeachment of President Trump, maybe, but to just revisit these issues. Burisma paid people close to the Biden family, including Hunter Biden, at least a few $1 million. There are allegations that it was more than that. There is written evidence that Burisma wanted this man fired. There is a videotape that you just showed of Joe Biden bragging about getting this man fired.
Exactly.
And we have all these people in corporate media
That's the
saying,
most damning
"Gosh, do you think
evidence
there's
there is."
something to this. Like, it's all out there. It's all, I mean, guns are smoking everywhere. Yeah. And yet, you know, we had to live through years of this Russia collusion hoax where people were like, there's no evidence supporting anything we're about to say, but we're going to weave this elaborate theory. And I just want to say one thing. When that first impeachment happened, Joe Biden and his allies came out and said, no. We didn't fire him because he was looking into Burisma, even though he was looking into Burisma. We fired him because he wasn't looking into them enough. And everyone in the media said, that checks out. That's...
Yeah, exactly. And then also the guy that they replaced him with, he quit looking into Burisma. Wait, what?
Sounds good. Let's go into this first impeachment. And I mean, what do you do about it? You've already lived through that. It affected elections. It affected many things about the civic health of our country. And now we have all this explosive stuff and, you know, who knows
And now we have, as we mentioned in the intro, the mugshot seen around the world and President Biden making the handsome guy crack. I'm not sure that really does anybody any good. We have a short montage I want to play, though, and that is the media gushing about the mugshot. Watch here.
No.
Or not.
Huh.
I tell you what. Let me just.
Yeah, he looked like he'd been beat up. That was.
Oh, now they have a bad producer today.
I mean, yeah, as you say,
I don't know. Actually, 3 people have lost their lives over the last month. That jail is where the disgraced ex-president of these United States is heading right now.
His weight is listed
175.
215.
6'3", 215, people pointed out as the exact dimensions of Lamar Jackson, the quarterback for the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know if the control room has a Lamar Jackson.
I mean, the resemblance is uncanny, Chris, and if that's what you're trying to say, I think.
He's in a pod.
I feel like an hour and 20 minutes ago, I said the whole thing is a sham. I mean, the whole thing.
I think we can all agree on that.
Everything these people say about how
It
they
is
care
a
about
sham.
democracy, the rule of law, equal treatment is fundamentally not true. I mean, we have an election coming up. They could allow the people to decide the election. Instead, they are laughing about throwing President Joe Biden's #1 political opponent behind bars, and they think that this is funny and not necessarily a bad moment historically for the country, whether it's a Republican or a Democrat. But real quickly on the Shokin thing, he's simply bolstering what we know already and was glaringly obvious, which is Joe Biden was Hunter Biden's business partner. I know everyone wants to try and deny that, but there is email traffic, there's FBI traffic, there's money traffic, and then the last thing is that Hunter Biden was making all this money on art, which the State Department says is a perfect way to launder money in their own policies. So we can say it's not obvious, but it is.
We'll see if it's obvious to David Weiss.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Wow. Yeah, this is interesting. He just comes out and says it. He's like, yeah, they fired me and they took bribes. They fired me because I was going into Burisma. It's really funny because like this woman was just saying he wasn't investigating Burisma enough, so I had to fire him. Then the person that they replaced him with, he stopped investigating Burisma. It's the dumbest lie ever, and the media just goes along with it, and the left just goes along with it. It's really interesting. This is why the right is growing so fast and the left is shrinking so fast, because anyone who actually looks into this stuff just realizes, okay, this is all BS. Everything the media ever says about anything is BS. How could you actually believe this stuff? I think the majority of people that are still on the left and haven't left yet, they just haven't had their come around moment where they've realized the media is just lying to them about everything. So they just go along with these ploys because they don't go and look into it. And they're like, oh, okay, he fired them because they weren't looking into Burisma enough. Okay, whatever. Yeah, they wanted him to do more. But that makes no sense considering Hunter Biden was on the board. Why would they want to have a prosecutor investigating someone that your son's on the board of? Why isn't your son investigating it? Right? I mean, he's on the board. Like, do your own internal investigation and give your findings to the prosecution. They're not doing that. And then, like I was just saying, like, and then the person they got in there, they They didn't even want to, that new guy, he didn't even want to investigate Burisma at all. But most people, like I was saying, like they keep letting the media lie to them. They're like, oh, he probably investigated Burisma a lot and just didn't find anything. No, it couldn't be further from the truth. He didn't look into him at all. And then Joe Biden admitted to it. So it's like the left will always just believe this stuff until they start doing their own research, which, again, that's why the right's growing so fast, because people are starting to slowly realize one lie. I think is Brendan Struck. He said that he really noticed once someone sent him a video and then he actually watched it about Trump and he's like, oh, wait, they lied about this. Okay, it's blatant. And then he started diving into other stuff. He's like, oh, they lie about everything. And that just seems like it's happening more and more every day. So, I mean, this is all just going to backfire in the long run. But it's on the media. The media is trying to protect Biden so bad, and it's just going to backfire. It's slowly backfiring on them. Even like Fox News, it's backfiring on them too. You know, for certain things, like firing Tucker Carlson and stuff. It's like it's just going to slowly drift away from them because they lie so much. But then they kind of have to because they have to protect these people. They don't necessarily have to, but they want to. They're in bed with them. And if the media wasn't protecting them, it just would never work. But with that, let's move on to the next story. At least 3 Marines are dead and 20 are injured during a military exercise. Here's a clip.
Breaking news at this hour, at least 3 Marines reported killed during joint military exercises in Australia.
20 others were severely injured when their Osprey aircraft went down on Melville Island near Darwin. ABC's Patrick Reevell is in London with more details. Patrick, good morning.
Good morning, Will. Yeah, we are learning more about this deadly crash that happened overnight. There are at least 23 Marines on board and at least 3 have been killed. Australian emergency services have been evacuating the injured from this island and at least several are badly hurt.
This morning, officials confirming at least 3 US Marines have died and at least 5 are severely injured after their Osprey aircraft crashed on a remote Australian island during a military exercise. Another 15 Marines on board also believed to have sustained injuries. The V-22 Osprey carrying the 23 Marines was en route to a training mission when it went down on one of the Tiwi Islands in northern Australia. The Marines taking part in a joint exercise called Predator's Run between the US, Australia and other East Asian countries. Australian emergency services dispatching aircraft to evacuate the Marines to the city of Darwin, 60 miles away.
5 Marines have been returned to Darwin for treatment, with the remaining being triaged at the scene and being transported back to Darwin.
Australian officials saying the evacuation of the injured is continuing. This the latest in a series of recent Osprey crashes. Last year, 4 Marines died in a crash near San Diego and another 4 in a crash during an exercise in Norway.
Wow.
At least 5 Marines are now in hospital in a serious condition. 1 is being operated on, according to Australian officials. The cause of the crash is still unknown. An investigation is getting underway. Stephanie.
A lengthy investigation is certainly to follow. Thank you so much, Patrick.
Wow. Yeah, I wanted to cover this because this is in Australia this time, but this stuff just keeps happening more and more. They mentioned the other crashes involving that type of aircraft, but like a Black Hawk, I think I've seen 2 stories in the last year of Black Hawks going down. The one was, I think, in Missouri next to an interstate highway. It's like, how is this happening? I don't know if it was an American flying the aircraft, but man, it's crazy because everyone's worried about like all this inclusivity and all this stuff, like the first transgender general and all this stuff, but they don't really worry about this stuff. And look at the ads they're putting out. They're already worried about not having enough military members. This isn't going to convince military members to go into the, or people to go into the military. It's like, it just seems like it's getting more and more incompetent. Right? It's just like not only are people not joining, but the people that are joining, no offense to anyone, if you're in the military, I'm not talking about you specifically, it just seems like incompetence is falling through the cracks. Like, how are all these crashes happening continuously and all these accidents and everything? Like, is the training poor? Like, how is this happening? It shouldn't be happening. I just don't get it. Promoting based on other things other than ability, maybe? That's my only guess. I really don't know. I'm just, spitballing here. But they got to solve this. It's like crash after crash after crash after crash for what? That's what training, that's what simulations are for. I just don't get it. But with that, let's move on to the next one. The Biden administration is pushing to limit alcohol consumption to 2 drinks per week. Here's a clip.
Welcome back to the big weekend show. Is it time for last call? It might have to be, as the Biden administration eyes stricter recommendations on booze. President Biden's alcohol czar says the administration is mulling new guidelines that may advise people to limit alcohol consumption to just 2 drinks per week. Dr. Koob explained the reasoning behind the new potential guidelines, saying, quote, if there's health benefits, I think people will start to reevaluate where we're at in the U.S.
Okay.
And went on to say, quote, if alcohol consumption guidelines go in any direction, it would be toward Canada, which already has that same limit.
Canada. That's great. Yeah, this is really interesting because let's go talk about booze, which some things, it's like a debate. Some things say a bit of alcohol is a health benefit. Some people say even 1 drink is terrible for you. But one thing everyone can agree on is food in America is horrendous for you. If you go and eat bread and cheese and stuff in other countries, you'll lose weight. You come and eat the same thing here, you gain weight. All this weird chemicals and stuff, like they put in bread, for example, to make it whiter, to make it last longer. That stuff is just not natural. But let's go after booze, a natural fermentation process that doesn't usually add a lot of random foreign chemicals and stuff to make it last longer. But that's what they're going to go after. And isn't this the party that wants to legalize cannabis and mushrooms and stuff, but now they're pushing back on alcohol? But that's actually a good point. Where is the legalized cannabis national law? Now that Democrats actually have some power. Where is it? I know Republicans have the House, but where's the bill in the Senate? I haven't heard of it.
2 per week. But the alcohol czar himself may not be the best role model, as even he admitted to enjoying a couple of glasses of wine a week. Griff, I'm sorry, I thought this was America. Doesn't this seem like an absolutely insane limit?
Go right to the beer drinking kid. Let me tell you, to steal a phrase and a great quote from Charlton Heston, Dr. Koob, you will get that 3rd beer from me when you pry it out of my cold, dead hands. Are you kidding me? First of all, who thought this up and who takes advice from Canada? Not to mention, you can go in any gas station and buy a 40, right? 1 drink is 12 ounces. 12 times 12 is 24. What are you going to get rid of 40s? Oh, come on.
12 times 12 is...
He meant 12 times 2.
No, 12-ounce drink, and you only get 2, so it would be 24 ounces. 24 ounces. So if a 40-ounce drink, no.
I was told there would be no math.
Yeah.
12 times 12.
I clearly need a drink to get the math correct.
12 plus 12, not 12 times 12.
I'm going to have 3 beers by 8:01 just in honor of Dr. Koob, because this is, quite frankly, the dumbest crap I've ever heard. Our government should be solving problems we are facing. Look, if you thought
they want more regulation.
That Americans are at each other's throat right now, just limit us to 2 drinks and see how that works out. I think it's a terrible idea.
It's an awful idea.
Where I stand.
I can't help but agree. But I want, it's Saturday, so maybe that's affecting my thinking here. But what do you think? 2 drinks per week, is that an appropriate amount?
No, that's crazy. It's going to be a recommendation for now, is what they tell us.
How are they going to handle liquor?
Ignore it if that, in fact, comes down the pike. In fact, Griff, I have written in my notes here, cold, dead hands.
Yes.
He said the same thing. What are you just going to do? Yeah, just double shots and that's it. And how are they going to track this? This is all just nonsense. You're going to track this as another bureaucratic agency or something on top of what we already have to limit this and to watch out for it? They just want more laws on top of laws on top of laws. Like I was just saying, I thought they were the party that wanted to legalize drugs, but not alcohol. You can tell it's all just a circus to get votes. They don't want to legalize drugs. They're pushing back on alcohol, which is socially acceptable, but that's what they're going after now? It just shows their real colors, doesn't it?
Make the exact same point, Dr. Koob. It's not, what a riot he must be at parties. And I love the quote
he
from
must
being
be
like,
a riot at parties.
If people were aware that there was health implications, perhaps they would change. But have you met us? Have you met America?
We're not the healthiest people.
Well, no, and
we like to live.
I will sometimes be 2 beers deep by noon at a college football tailgate, and I have no apology for that. Like, yes, drink responsibly, don't be an idiot, and all of that, but this is an absolute hard no.
And you say that it's just a recommendation, but one of the problems is all these recommendations always turn into actual laws. You know, it's beer here, but they've gotten rid of effective dishwashing. They're coming after gas stoves.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, yeah, they're coming after all this stuff. Yeah, it's weird. But then this stuff, I just think it's so weird because this is supposedly the party that wants to legalize drugs, right? The Democrats, and now they're going after alcohol, which no one wants illegal. Yeah, it's I don't even get it. But this is what they do. They just want to push more for a social credit system. Hey, if we can track if you're how often you're buying booze, right? Then we're gonna know how often you're buying everything else. Maybe that's where they're going with this. I mean, I don't get another. I'm starting to feel like a broken record, but they want to legalize drugs except for alcohol. Yeah, it's madness. But with that, let's move on to the next story. Vivek Ramaswamy says he would have certified the 2020 election. Here's a clip.
Let me bring up a couple questions you didn't get a chance to answer at the debate. Most of the candidates on stage Wednesday night said Mike Pence did the right thing on January 6th. Do you agree?
I would have done it very differently. I think that there was a historic opportunity that he missed to reunite this country in that window. What I would have said is this is a moment for a true national consensus where there's 2 elements of what's required for a functioning democracy in America. One is secure elections, and the second is a peaceful transfer of power. When those things come into conflict, that's an opportunity for heroism. Here's what I would have said. We need single-day voting on Election Day. We need paper ballots, and we need government-issued ID matching the voter file. And if we achieve that, then we have achieved victory, and we should not have any further complaints.
I don't know if you can understand, because even where there were validations through paper ballots, there were still issues in some of these places, right? So it's like... about
election integrity.
I'll get into more of that.
I would have driven it through the Senate.
So what would you have done with Mike Pence? You would have not certified the election?
So in my capacity as president of the Senate, I would have led through that level of reform. Then on that condition, certified the election results, served it up to the president, President Trump, then to sign that into law, and on January 7th, declared the re-election campaign pursuant to a free and fair election. I think that was a missed opportunity, but that's the kind of spirit we're going to need to unite this country rather than sweeping those concerns under the rug.
So is he saying that he would have... Sorry. So, yeah, I mean, if he would have done that and then redone another election, I would agree with him. But if he was just going to go and just be like, okay, well, we lost, but I'm going to certify it. Yeah, that's. Let me look at that part of the clip again, actually, because I think he might have said do another election on there. Let me restart this.
Let me bring up a couple questions you didn't get a chance to answer at the debate.
We achieved that. Driven it through the Senate.
So what would you have done with Mike Pence? You would have not certified the election?
Driven it through the Senate.
So what would you have done with Mike Pence? You would have not certified the election?
So in my capacity as president of the Senate, I would have led through that measure of reform. Then on that condition, certified the election results, served it up to the president, President Trump, then to sign that into law, and on January 7th, declared the re-election campaign pursuant to a free and fair election. I think that was a missed opportunity, but that's the kind of spirit we need.
I don't agree with him at all. So he would have said, okay, I would have on January 7th started a re-election campaign pursuant on the new laws. Why? So he's saying he thinks there's shenanigans, but then he thinks there was shenanigans, but then he's just like, okay, I'm just going to push it through anyways. And what if the Democrats didn't want to push it through? What if they were like, no, we don't want to? What is he just going to like do a bluff? And then he's just not going to certify the election based on they can't get those laws on, not about anything else. Yeah, but it's interesting. I just don't know if people like this just didn't do any research in this. But like, let's just start with Michigan. Michigan had during the counting process where people could look into the windows. There was one precinct taped used pizza boxes on the windows. Another one pasted a poster board One precinct said, okay, you guys could go to lunch to the Republicans, and they wouldn't let them back in. And then the people that certify the votes, they got their families threatened, and they only signed the certification because they said, okay, we'll sign it, but we want to do an investigation after. They signed it, and then the other people certifying, they're like, no, we're not doing an investigation. Yeah, so if Mike Pence could have certified, sent it back to that state, right? Back to Michigan and be like, okay, and then those people could have got a chance to revote. And then if they want to certify it again, okay, fair enough. Okay, but then you get the legal challenge. Come back a week later, you get a week to, I think it's a week per law that you have to come back after you go to recertify. But then in Pennsylvania, they wouldn't let poll watchers, Republican poll watchers, they just wouldn't let them into the precincts. Dude calls the sheriff. The sheriff didn't care. It's like, wait, where do you go there? Like, you got to do an investigation into that. And then, of course, Georgia, the hot topic right now, the burst pipe. It was funny. Fani Willis, I covered this yesterday, the prosecutor trying to take out Trump for tweeting about election stuff. She was thinking the burst pipe was for Republicans to cheat. That's what she thought. That's what she wrote on Twitter. Oh, there's a burst pipe. We have to investigate this, which, I mean, fair enough. We should, if some random burst pipe. But then everyone leaves for the night. I'm sure you know this. But they left for the night, and then the Secretary of State of Georgia calls and says, okay, continue counting. And then we have the security of the cases where they're bringing them out of. And I don't know. They're like, okay, that's just what happens. We have some ballots stored in cases. I don't know about that. But why the burst pipe, and why aren't the Republicans called back? Right? And then I think it was Pennsylvania, they said that the poll watchers were so far away from the counting that they couldn't even read any of it. They had to stand like 20 feet away. So, yeah, I don't like this stuff. I mean, could have Joe Biden have won and could it have gotten recertified? Yeah, for sure. Definitely. I don't know. Probably not, but maybe. And then if they would have certified again, it's just, I don't know the legality of it, but I would just, okay, certify again. What are you going to do? Because you do want that peaceful transition of power. But that's what's divided the country so much. When Vivek's like, oh, no, he had a great chance to, bring us back together and everything by changing the vote. What if the left would have got in there in 2022 and just reversed all of that? Like, what's the point? And like I said, you think there were shenanigans because of ID laws and whatever, and then, oh, no, okay, no, we'll just certify it anyways if we get these laws. And one other thing about Michigan I don't want to forget to mention is Crowder's crew, Stephen Crowder, Louder with Crowder, his crew went through and looked at addresses that were registered to these people, and the places were empty lots, a lot of these. So it's just like this, it deems investigation. And then, of course, all the voter rolls and all this stuff. I would have sent it back to the states just to really get an investigation. Even if we would have lost, if Trump would have lost, at least it would have highlighted to normal people that don't know all of this stuff, that don't watch Louder with Crowder, highlight what is happening. Do an investigation, and then this is what's happening. And at least you can shore up the laws the next time. But when you don't investigate it, you can't even ask questions about it. Trump, he's getting prosecuted for asking questions. His lawyers are getting prosecuted for answering questions. Until a few months ago on YouTube, you couldn't even discuss the elections. Because no. And I think the only reason why they reversed it is because they are prepping for 2024 when they lose. So then they can say election fraud, like Hillary Clinton did and like Stacey Abrams did. Where's their prosecution? And me saying this, a lot of people would be like, oh, this guy's just this crazy Trump guy, Trump supporter. I'm really not. I like Trump. I voted for him in 2020. I didn't vote at all in 2016. But if it was just complicated because I was running a business and I just didn't have time, and I didn't really trust Trump or Clinton, but Trump convinced me over the 4 years. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to vote for him in 2020. But for me, it's like, it's principle. I'm more of like a Dave Smith, like Ron Paul guy personally, but I think Trump would do a good job. I'm probably going to vote for him in 2024, but I'm not like a Trump guy. I'm not like, oh, we needed Trump. It's just principle. And the election fraud is BS. I don't care what side you're on. You should think that. I don't want Republicans to win from cheating. I'm glad that Republicans are getting into ballot harvesting because that is legal and the left does it. So why isn't the right doing it? The thing about the right is their ground game is not good. But we're getting there. Scott Presler and his allies and stuff, we're like the right is getting there. So that's good. But the left's ground game is usually way crazier. They'll go grind it out. They'll go do ballot harvesting. They'll go canvass. They'll register people to vote. The right doesn't generally do that. But now it's kind of just it's switching. So that is really good. But that's kind of what's needed. And then we again, voter ID and stuff like that. Like, shouldn't that just be a given? Right? You need an ID to do everything, but you don't need an ID to vote in a lot of states. Here in Texas, you need an ID. Every time I go in there, they're like, okay, you where's your ID? So yeah, it's way better. And then here in Texas, there are electronic systems that you cast your ballot on, but then there's a paper ballot to back it up. That's how every state should be. That should be the standard. And then the country wouldn't even be close to as divided if this was just a given. But it's like the left knows they can't win. It's like the left knows they can't win if they don't have these weird, shady practices, right? Otherwise, why wouldn't they want it? And again, I just wish Pence would have just thrown it back to the states. Even if Trump would have lost in the long run, it would have given people more opportunity to ask questions. And that's the thing about the left right now. Why can no one ask questions? No one said that about 2016 or 2000, 2004. Right? People on the right, I mean, they might, I don't think so. I was way younger back then. But as far as I remember, people on the right were like, you can't ask questions. People are asking questions all the time. The ballots in the ocean in Florida and stuff. I thought all that was sketch. And I think George Bush only won 2024 probably is because the war, that it is all of his scare tactics and everything. But I don't know. I could be wrong. He might have won. Again, I was younger back then. I was like 12, so 12 to 16. I didn't really pay attention until 2008. So, and then I mentioned I was a Trump guy. I used to like Obama. I voted for Obama first term. I canvassed for him. But then he said a lot of good stuff, right? He said, we want transparency in government. I don't agree with his policies at all anymore. I was way younger back then. But that's my point. I'm not like a never Trump guy, and I'm not like a hardcore Republican. Like I said, I'm more of a libertarian guy. But to have anything remotely resembling like this country, which, my grunt style shirt, I love America, best country in the world, best country in the history of the world. We need to have fair elections. You can't go and be doing shady stuff. Even if the left wins, the left wins. I think everyone on the right agrees with that. If Biden won under not all these weird, shady circumstances that I just pointed out earlier, it is what it is. What can you do? Your guy can't always win. I wanted Rand Paul in 2016 over Trump, but Trump won. I wasn't crying about it. It's like, okay, whatever. But I think I'll leave it there. Let's move on to the next story. CNN launching another streaming service after the last one completely failed. Let's play a clip.
Remember CNN's highly touted foray into streaming? The one that cost them hundreds of millions, only to go kaput in just a month? Well, just when we thought that episode was behind them, here they go again. Warner Brothers Discovery, in a bold, or should we say reckless move, has announced CNN Max, a 24-hour streaming news channel. It's like watching a blockbuster movie sequel, only this time the first movie was a complete box office flop. Let's take a trip down memory lane, shall we? CNN Plus, in its ambitious leap, reportedly spent a fortune only to secure a paltry 10,000 daily viewers.
10,000 daily
streaming
viewers.
Giants where figures run into the tens of millions. This is like bringing a toothpick to a sword fight.
I have a small channel, and I get like 2,000 to 5,000 viewers a day on a lot of days. So I think my best day has been more than 10,000. So it's like I'm reaching what they're doing, and I don't even have 2,000 subscribers.
Clear, they promised the moon, parading big names like Chris Wallace, Cassie Hunt, hoping it would make a difference. Alas, it didn't. So why did CNN Plus
No one knows who
well,
those
there's a
people are
buffet
anyway.
of reasons.
That's why.
Oversaturation of streaming services is a start. Then there's the impeccable timing of Warner Media's merger with Discovery, forming...
Well, and I don't know if he points this out, but the obvious answer was you couldn't even watch CNN on CNN Plus. It was all like after stuff. It's how Fox Nation is. It's like, why don't you guys just get a subscription service where you can watch the channels And then, yeah, I have extra stuff for sure. Podcasts, exclusive podcasts and stuff like that. It's so obvious. Somehow they just don't, I don't know how they don't get it.
Warner Brothers Discovery Incorporated, leading to the CNN Plus plug being pulled. Fast forward to the present, Warner Brothers Discovery, seeming not to heed past lessons, places their bets once more on CNN. CNN Max, that's right, is set to be their shining knight, launching in the U.S. on September 27th. Intended to be a part of an open beta for news, it aims to be a playground for experimentation with product features and original storytelling. At least they're inviting feedback this time.
Yeah, they
and
say
here's where
they
it gets
are,
interesting,
but
or should I say
inviting
perplexing.
feedback.
According to their press release,
They're going to do what they
CNN
want.
Max will leverage CNN's reporting excellence, global news gathering, in live programming from CNN US, CNN International. They're taking the same CNN, dressing it up a little differently, and expecting us to buy it all over again. This time around, CNN anchors like Jim Acosta, Raheel Solomon, and Frederica Whitfield are leading the charge.
I don't know who the other people are, but who the hell's going to pay to go watch Jim Acosta?
But names, however prominent, couldn't save them before. So why would this time be any different? You know, just like how CNN should consider trimming their overzealous ventures instead of adding more to their lineup. Now, Warner Brothers Discovery isn't just fighting the specter of the past. The conglomerate battles a slew of present challenges. A network with abysmal ratings, sweeping layoffs, and the very public firing of the former chief, Chris Licht. CNN's woes have grown from mere hiccups to a full-blown crisis. Executives shaking up, box office failures, company-wide layoffs, post their $43 billion merger in 2022. It's not an easy mountain to climb. J.B. Perrett, the CEO of Global Streaming and Games at Warner Brothers Discovery, optimistically stated that CNN Max is differentiated by having 24/7 news at its core from CNN. It's evident that they're banking on the young
Wasn't that the same as before?
But then we must ask, does this younger generation want to be fed the same old wine in a new bottle? To be fair, let's acknowledge that streaming does have its challenges, but if history has taught us anything, it's to learn from past mistakes. The CNN brand, despite its legacy, has seen better days. With a contemporary audience that's increasingly discerning, they won't just consume news because it's on a new platform. It needs to be relevant, truthful, and devoid of propaganda. The endgame here is simple.
Yeah, you're not getting that
CNN
from
Max
CNN.
is either a calculated risk or an act of sheer defiance against common sense. The platform's fate is uncertain. However, one thing is clear: in the vast sea of content, the survival of the fittest reigns supreme. And here we are at the precipice of yet another attempt by CNN to reclaim its former glory. But as we've witnessed, not every past can be resurrected, not every misstep undone. In a world where information is at our fingertips, the American people deserve more than just repackaged content. We deserve truth, clarity, and most importantly, trust. Warner Brothers Discovery endeavor with CNN Max serves as a stark reminder that simply changing platforms isn't the solution. It's about changing narratives and restoring faith. As you switch off your screens tonight, ponder on this. In a world bursting with voices, will CNN Max find its resonance, or will it just be another fleeting echo? Only time will tell.
It's a joke. That's what this is. No, CNN's not going to... They already tried this. I just don't even understand. Weren't they basically giving it away for free, like $2 a year or something, too? And then it's no one wants it. And they, again, it doesn't even sound like they're going to do... They just said, okay, the news at the core, but are they actually broadcasting? It just sounds... No, it's just like... It sounds like they're... Even if they are broadcasting, who cares? Nobody wants this. You can just go on YouTube. Why wouldn't you just go get YouTube and watch stuff on YouTube? It's way better. They have all the clips of CNN on YouTube anyway. I don't get it. It's not like they have like a host like Tucker Carlson or somebody that... And then he was even saying he hated Fox Nation, their app or whatever, subscription. I don't really know what it is. I think it's a subscription service. But he hated it. He said it sucks. In those leaked texts, he's like, I hate it sucks. Why would anyone go on there? And he was a megastar. You know, he is a megastar. They got Jim Acosta. I don't even know who the other people are. really. They fired all the people that I knew. I mean, I didn't like them, but I knew who they were, like Chris Cuomo, Brian Stelter. Again, I don't like these people, but I don't remember Don Lemon. They fired all these people, rightfully so. Their ratings are trash. But why would you? You're gonna go and just these new people you just hired. Oh yeah, go spend more. Maybe wait a few years. Maybe. I still don't think it would work. This is just a waste of money. I don't even know why they're doing this. I think it's really funny though. Why not? Go waste more money. Maybe it'll kill CNN, or get them to a spot where they sell to a person that actually can do a good job with it. But really, I mean, didn't they just try this, get a more conservative guy in, and what did he? It's just the more of the same. It didn't matter. But maybe if they did sell to I don't know, who would they even sell to change it? It's just going to keep getting worse and worse probably, and this is just going to accelerate it. So why not, I guess, right? But with that, let's move on to the next story. Oops. One moment. Twitter, now known as X CEO, details the most major changes Elon Musk is bringing to the platform. Here's a clip.
I think we should start with sort of the most recent major announcement, which is the company now being called X. Why did you do this rebrand?
Well, first of all, I think we need to rewind a little bit and remind ourselves that Elon has been talking about X, the everything app, for a very long time. Even when we announced that I was...
It's weird because he's been wanting to do this since 2002, which back in 2002, X wouldn't have been like a bad name. X.com. It kind of seems like timely. But now it just... Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the name. Why not just keep Twitter and make that the everything app? I don't know.
Joining the company. I was joining the company.
I mean, Facebook started out, look at what everything Facebook has now. It started out with a wall, and it didn't even have messaging when it, I don't even think so. That's a long time ago. But then now look at what they have. They have other groups. They have their marketplace. Their marketplace is a huge moneymaker. They didn't even have ads. They didn't just go, well, we're going to go make an everything app and change the name of it, right? Well, just keep the name Twitter. It's a good brand known around the world for 15 years. Now we're just going to call it X because we wanted to make it that everything app. I think it's a very interesting decision.
Company to partner with Elon to transform Twitter into X, the everything app. So, you know, I also at the heart of the rebrand, X, we need to keep our minds open that it's developing into this global town square that is fueled by free expression, where the public gathers in real time. And I want to stop on that for a second, because in real time is what's most important about the vibrancy of X and how people interact with it. And now it's all in one seamless interface. So think about what's happened since the acquisition, right? Experiences and evolution into long-form video and articles. Subscribe to your favorite creators who are now earning a real living on the platform, which is so exciting. You look at...
I mean, that's cool. I like that. But why do they have to change it to the name, though? That's what I don't get. And they're trying to add all these new features and everything. And I have Twitter Blue. I quit. I was trying to upload videos. It was really slow to upload videos. They recommend 720p. It was really slow. And then sometimes they would let it be more than 1 gig. I'm pretty sure you're supposed to be able to upload more than one videos that are bigger than 1 gigabyte if you have Twitter Blue, but then it doesn't work half the time. So there's bugs like that. I can't change the thumbnail. It's funny the stuff they want to add, but then they can't add that. They can't add if I want to upload a larger video, I should be able to upload a larger video, right? If I have Twitter Blue, and that's supposed to be a thing, but then that's bugged out. I can't change the thumbnail. That's just core stuff they should be fixing before they add more stuff, don't you think?
Video, and you look at soon you'll be able to make video chat calls without having to give your phone number to anyone.
I love she touts that, like Discord, Skype. Skype hasn't been a thing for 20 years. You don't even have to give your phone number to anyone, and you can make a video call. That's what we're bringing to the future.
On the platform. And then payments. Payments, there's been a lot of talk about that. Payments between you and a friend, between you and one of your creators.
Yeah.
So there's been a lot going on, and the rebrand represented.
It's just funny because it's just so, like, okay, I got to catch. It's nothing revolutionary. You should, if you want to bring like an everything app, I love that idea, but bring new stuff. Like I was trying to do my own social network. The platform didn't really work out. I used like a pre-existing platform, and they just really need to update it. It's too old. So if I go back into it, I'll just try to get some funding and make it myself. But that's what I wanted to do. I want to do video. I wanted it to be like Facebook, but kind of like separate at the same time. Like video is for you. It's more like YouTube, and it's like every tab at the top. It's like different, you know? So I thought that'd be really cool.
Really,
I guess I probably shouldn't get into too much details of it. I just realized. But, you know, I like the idea of this, but it's like, why do you need to rebrand it, and why aren't you bringing like a killer feature, right? Bring something really, really interesting that no other platform has. It's just like, okay, we're bringing video messaging, we're bringing this stuff that all these other apps already have. It's like, and they're not even doing it as well. I like the payments, them paying creators now.
From Twitter, a liberation that allowed us to evolve past a legacy mindset and a thinking, and to reimagine how everyone on Spaces who's listening, everybody who's watching around the world, it's going to change how we congregate, how we entertain, how we transact, all in one platform.
I don't think it's going to change any of that. She's acting, she sounds so old. She's like she's in a time warp from 2002 when Elon Musk bought X.com, the actual domain name. This is what he envisioned. And now she's just like, we're going to do this. It's going to change how we pay and how we get entertained. Is it? It's going to be the same thing on a different platform. What's changing? It's not, I don't know. What would you, I'm trying to think of like a killer thing they could have done. But I mean, the internet and apps are so advanced now. It's like, what are you going to do with it? I kind of get it. Like the X thing, like we're going to change it to X so we could get out of that mindset. But at the same time, it's like you could have just called it Twitter and just had all the same stuff. Everyone that I know is just like, oh, okay, whatever, I'll still use it. But then Twitter's probably a better name. Retweeting, it gave it more character. Now it's post and repost. I don't know. They could have just kept it that. And everything, I don't know. It's not like they're trying to do some really crazy stuff, it doesn't sound like. They want to do payments and messaging, video calls and stuff. It's like, it kind of sounds just boring. The name's interesting. People like it. I mean, a lot of Elon Musk fans like it. So what do I know? But I just don't think it was necessary. And then everyone knows what tweeting is. And notice every time I do a video or someone does an interview, we all have to say formerly known as Twitter, because the people are going to be like, what the hell is X? What is that? I don't know what that is. So now for the next 3 to 5 years, we just have to say that instead, even though like the last 15 years, you know, they've branded Twitter as the brand. It's just really interesting. I don't think it was really necessary. I really don't. And then we want to make it the everything app. Again, that's fine. It's just I don't get the name change exactly. And then she's coming out here like, oh yeah, we have this and this. We're gonna do this. It's funny, her tone. That's what I think is funny. She's not saying we're gonna bring in features, you know, that you love and know and love from other things, but then you're gonna have them all into one thing. She's like, we're gonna change the way you message. You can even message each other without a phone number. Okay, yeah, we've had that since it's 2000s with Skype. We've had Google Hangouts. We have Teams. Everyone used Zoom. I just don't know. I just don't like her tone. But whatever. I'll still use the platform. Why not? It's fine. It's just a lot of these decisions they're making, I just think they're kind of silly because they are acting like there's these major things that aren't really that exciting. Bring the features to the platform, sure, but no one's going to go to X and be like, oh man, in 3 years, I can't remember when it was just Twitter and we couldn't even message and send payments. No one's going to care. You could just use Cash App or whatever that you have now, or PayPal. Yeah, whatever. But I think I will leave it there. let's move on to the next story. The Dwight Schrute actor from The Office slams rich man north of Richmond. Let's play a clip.
From the post-millennial, multi-millionaire celebrity Rainn Wilson slammed for smearing Oliver Anthony over populist anthem. I don't know that he really smeared him, but boy, do I love this. Rainn Wilson, you guys know him, love him. He was in The Office, right?
Yeah, he played Dwight Schrute.
That's right. Yeah. He said, if I were writing a song about rich men north of Richmond, I wouldn't talk about obese people on welfare. I'd sing about CEOs who make 400 times their average worker's salary, up from 50 times 30 years ago, and corporations that pay zero taxes in offshore tax shelters for billionaires.
It's inflation,
just,
bro.
Pause right there.
And no one would listen
I'm
to
gonna
it,
pause.
so.
Yeah.
Rainn Wilson.
I'm also going to pause. 400 times the average worker versus 50 times 50 years ago. That's inflation. It's, you know what I mean?
You're an ultra rich Hollywood celebrity type. I don't think this song was written for you. I think this song was written for the working class guy who's expressing this discontent with a broken system. And guess what? If he wrote the song as you described it, I don't think it'd be number one.
No.
I don't think he'd have the biggest song in the world right now. I don't think he'd have debuted as one of the only people ever to debut on their first ever single charting at number one. Clearly, you are wrong.
I think that Chris Anthony, I'll call him Oliver Anthony. That's his stage name. It's Chris Lunford is his actual name. But he mentions the bureaucrats in that song at some point. I don't remember.
The song's about him. It's called Richmond North of Richmond.
He also talks about people that are getting obese on welfare, which is a phenomenal point because you can buy Pepsi with food stamps. You can buy
candy and chocolate.
Crappy shit. Like, that's so bad for people.
It is. So let me just point this out. When Oliver Anthony says, if you're 5'3" and 300 pounds, taxes shouldn't be buying your fudge rounds, Rainn Wilson doesn't get this. He is the fat, effeminate man with liberal sensibilities who's advocating for lazy individuals to leech off a system for which the working class work and pay for. And it is the overwhelming majority of them who do it. And when he says, yes, but if the billionaires paid their taxes, yes, well, if the billionaires paid their taxes, it would barely account for any of the tax base. Right. This is the lie that crackpots like Rainn Wilson and these other far-left extremists push to convince you to allow them to gut the system and steal from.
Yeah, and it's like to pay their taxes, the billions. I just did a video or did a segment the other day about this. I posted it as a clip, as a video on YouTube if you want to check it out. It said, is welfare killing the U.S. economy? It's $3 trillion per year. 53% of people's income, the United States income, goes to welfare. So the billionaires paying their taxes aren't going to do anything.
It's the billionaires who are at fault. Let's do the math.
And that stupid corporation myth. If corporations pay more in taxes, they're going to have to charge their customers more or pay their workers less. They can't just go, it's not just coming out of nowhere.
If you were to tax, I love this meme. If you taxed every billionaire at 100% and took all of their money, it would account for a very small percentage of the actual tax expenditures, and it would last you only a few months. Yeah. What really funds the system is that if you've got 300 million people and you take $1 from them every day, you get $300 million per day. Yeah. 3 million. So you're talking about a couple $1 billion per week, 2 point some odd. You're talking about billions per month. It doesn't matter how much in cash the billionaires actually have. Most of their billionaire assets are in hard assets. They can't actually liquefy, not easily. So, Oliver Anthony is correct. He's sitting there saying his paycheck is almost nothing. The dollar's worthless. And there's some 5'3", 300-pound person eating fudge rounds off of his hard work and labor. And then Rainn Wilson's like, well, why aren't you complaining about billionaires? Bro, Rainn, you are exactly what you describe. Yeah. It's the rich who are the problem. Yes, you. Ultra wealthy, fat liberals voting to gut the salaries and the payments of the working class to then promise to ignorant, lazy people that if they keep voting for you, you'll give them free stuff.
Yeah. It's wild to see people like Hassan Piker talking about what he talks about. Yeah, see him say the stuff he says, and he's in a mansion in L.A. It's like, dude, come on.
I think that Oliver Anthony makes a phenomenal point talking about these people that are sick on welfare. Maybe he's annoyed that he's paying for it, but also if we're going to fix society, it's going to be from the ground up. And if people at the ground are sick, then they're not going to be able to fix society. So it's a big problem. Eat healthy, get your mind right, get your family right, then get your society right.
It's a system that perpetuates itself, though. Imagine being on welfare again, eating food that makes you sick. You're then become dependent on the healthcare system. I mean, it's the whole. I don't know. It ripples out. So.
And then when they want to give someone,
I don't know how literal that is so much as seems to me like a metaphor. Again, I haven't listened to the song though. So.
Oh, you haven't heard it yet?
No, I mean it's fine.
It's short. It's like 3 minutes, two and a half minutes long.
I still think it's weird that he's like, if I were going to write a song, I would write it completely different.
Then write the damn
do
song.
it. Exactly.
If I was going to be in a comedy, it would be way better than, I would have looked in a different direction than you looked, Rain, in that one scene when you were talking to Jim. I would have looked to the left. And yeah, your posture was good, but it wasn't that good. I would have had a little bit better posture. I'm just kidding, man. Get out here. Help me make this movie, bro. And work it out with Tim, because I love you, Rain. Come on. You're a spirit, man. Let's do this.
I think a lot of people have affection for Rainn Wilson because he was sort of unusual. His character on The Office is such a big deal and so interesting. And then he himself has kind of an unusual life. But this, like, well, if I had written a song, I would have attacked someone else, and therefore yours is bad. Like, obviously, this song is popular and hitting a chord. And if you want to write a different song, great, do it. But don't tear down that the points that he's making out are resonating with people. In fact, humble yourself and take away that people are really feeling a connection to this. Maybe you are not aware of something that you should open your eyes to.
I think
he's playing at Blue Ridge Rock Festival.
Oh, I think we went there.
We went there last year.
That's a great festival.
That was one of the best I've ever been to.
Yo, those stages are awesome.
Slipknot, or not Slipknot. Sorry, Guar.
Guar played, Jack Black and Kyle Gass, Tenacious D, of course, Adelaide of Sway. They had us, got us backstage.
They tweeted out special guest Oliver Anthony. Man,
oh, that's gonna be lit. We should go.
He's gonna have like.
I thought they were talking about Rainn Wilson. I'm like, he actually makes music. I didn't know they were talking about Oliver Anthony. Yeah, go him.
When he plays, that's gonna have the biggest crowd.
I hope they headline that because that'll be really good.
Wow.
Does he have a full band now? I guess he's got to how to whip the band together.
He put out a statement that was like, I am very excited about this. Thank you for your support. Also, I don't feel like I'm quite a good enough musician to like take on all of these things. Like there's an element that he is trying to like deliver at a maximum level to people who are supporting him, which I respect.
Same thing with merchandise too. He put out a tweet that essentially said, I want to do things right. I don't want to just go to Chop Shop. So be patient.
And he's working with like a small family-owned or like a local company.
Yeah, the music
that's awesome.
Will stay on the test of time, so there's no rush.
Yeah, it's cool.
Although the iron is hot right now, so it's good to hit it.
You don't need to be the best musician ever. This is the biggest mistake I hear from young musicians that I've experienced in my life, and it actually translates to almost every industry.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, I played a show. I played a bunch of shows. Played a lot of shows actually, and I was like middle lineup, whatever it's called. I wasn't the headliner. I wasn't the opening act, and I had the room packed. It was like 150 seats or whatever. I ended up making a couple $100. I was super excited. I was like, wow. Most of the songs that I wrote were just like 4 chords, relatively basic, and then I would sing.
Yeah.
The headlining performance was one
song.
of the most musically beautiful songs I've ever heard, and people left the room. Yeah, and the reason is, it's what we call music for musicians. Oliver Anthony wrote music for people, and people want to hear that music. And then you get these musical theorists who are like, here's how you write a good song, because they're trying to impress musicians. That's cool. No, by all means, like make the best music ever made. Arpeggiated guitar, like really cool stuff and really great lyrics that are really impactful. Or write a song for the masses that the regular people resonate with, that speaks to them, and you are exactly what a good musician is. I'll put it this way. The best ice cream in the world. What does that mean? Does it mean like you should consume it because it's good for you, or does it mean it tastes great? Because this is what I would always tell my friends. I knew a guy played in a band and it was like weird experimental stuff, and he kept talking about how big it was going to be, and I was like, do your thing, man. But I'm just going to tell you, you're making like asparagus ice cream. Some people may really, really like asparagus ice cream. It's experimental, man. We've never seen this before.
It's a good analogy.
Most people just want chocolate, So figure out what that mass appeal is if you're trying to be a famous musician. If you're just trying to be a musician because you like music and you like the art, more power to you. But don't act like you're going to be the biggest. So this is what I would say to Oliver Anthony, man. You are the best musician because you wrote a song that people want to hear. It's all that matters.
It's also the way he sings it. You mentioned resonation.
Right.
Like if it resonates, and that's literal vibrational resonance that your voice produces in other human beings. Like, you vibrate their bones when they say, that song resonated with me. It's because it actually literally produced resonation. So the voice, I mean, it's so lost in the modern age, unfortunately, and I want it to be recovered, this text communication crap. I mean, you want to talk about why is there a degradation in society in any way? I think it stems from that people are texting each other what 30 years ago we would only speak to each other about, so you could resonate.
There was phone, but and the phone loses a little bit, but I agree with you. I think the internet has destroyed community, and
particularly text chat.
Yes, right, with Twitter and short text too, because people I love this. TMZ, I think it was TMZ. No, somebody wrote an article where they were like, Kid Rock is slammed, might have been Newsweek, over drinking Bud Light. And they're like, with some even claiming it was treason. And then they showed my tweet of all caps treason, which was clearly sarcasm. But
Tim, you're always serious.
They don't care that it's sarcasm.
No.
They're just like, wow, we can sell this fake outrage. Anybody who did a modicum, a small amount of research into my tweets and histories knows that I did not literally think, like, there's, I don't care Kid Rock drank this thing.
Makes me wonder
but they get clicks.
If Rainn Wilson had been able to say the words of what he typed, if there's a way that I would have understand what he was saying and be like, no, I get it. I get what you're saying. Yeah. It would even be inspirational for Oliver Anthony to hear him say those words out loud, when in text, it just looked like whiny bitch text.
I think text can be sort of disruptive to the way flow or, intonation would would deliver a message. I will say, in defense of writing, there are times in our history where we've relied on like letters and written communication, and because you knew that you wouldn't get the speed that we now have, you put a lot more thought into it, right? Like, think of like some of the best love letters written of all time, or poetry, or things that we did in the past. I mean, even like the Federalist Papers, right? People spent time thinking about what they were writing in a way that we don't do now, because everything is so fast. Not that Twitter can't be incredibly effective for delivering messages, but it's just a different approach to something that we have become accustomed to.
I was chatting with my girlfriend, and there was a day that we were having just kind of a subtle argument or whatever, and we were texting. And I normally will not text anything. If there's a problem emotionally, it's verbal, or I'll peacefully, I'll wait until I see you and talk to you about it. But anyway, we typed. And then, like, days went by, things were resolved. And I went back in that chat, and for whatever reason, I saw the old messages, and it started to work me up again. Like, it out of context, it was the past. It has no place in my memory anymore. We already resolved it, but it's still there in text. And I'm like reading it and thinking like, oh, did she mean that when she typed it? Well, and then these other emotions, I'm like, what am I doing?
But because you've resolved the argument, you have to let it go.
Yeah, it should have been like a memory of a communication. It should be gone in my memory now, but because it's literally in text, I still have a copy of it. That's unnecessary and probably very, very bad for brain.
I've heard other couples say that when they have a problem, they like to, I knew this one couple that would email each other and be like, when I talk to you face to face, I'm kind of dominated by my emotions. So when I can sit down and write you a thoughtful and respectful email about whatever's bothering me, I actually find it easier to resolve. I think that there's a place for both. But I think we are going for speed and therefore stripping away kind of specific and descriptive language, which helps us understand what the message is behind our written word.
Thanks for watching this clip from the...
Yeah, how interesting. Yeah, all that stuff was really interesting. Yeah, I don't think Rainn Wilson, I don't know. Yeah, write your own song, bro. If you don't like the song, you should talk about this. There's people that write stuff about everything. Like, go find those musicians and, yeah, go listen to their stuff. If you like it better, the lyrics are better for you, go. There's so much music, so who cares? Let the guy write what he wants to write. But I will leave it there. Let's move on to the next story. A new study shows the harms on children from using tablets for extended periods of time. Here's a clip. Canceled.
I've spent plenty of time on the show explaining my problem with studies, and there's nothing wrong in principle with the idea of conducting a study. Doing a study just means that you're studying something. I'm not opposed to that. The problem, as I've argued, is that so many studies use shoddy methodology in order to arrive at a predetermined conclusion, and then those same studies are used as ammunition in political arguments by people who haven't read them. But on the other end of the spectrum are studies that are entirely valid and reach legitimate conclusions by following the scientific process. and yet are still a waste of time because they prove something that everyone should already know intuitively without any scientific study telling them. You have studies that come to fake conclusions, and then you have studies that come to foregone conclusions, self-evident conclusions. This week, the media is reporting on one that falls very much into that latter category, or at least I would have hoped that it falls into the latter category. I would like to believe that everyone already knows this and doesn't need any scientific research to tell them, but perhaps it turns out I'm wrong. CNN reports, quote, handing your baby a phone or tablet to play with may seem like a harmless solution when you're busy, but it could quickly affect their development, a new study has found. Now, it's a brief sidebar here. I guess my initial theory has already taken a hit. The optimistic part of me, a part that is growing smaller and smaller by the day, would have liked to think that every parent understands that getting your baby hooked on a tablet is most certainly not a harmless solution, nor is it a healthy way to deal with the busyness of life. But that's not the impression you get from the first sentence of this article. And reading on, quote, having anywhere from 1 to 4 hours of screen time per day at age 1 is linked with higher risks of developmental delays in communication, fine motor, problem solving, and personal and social skills by age 2, according to a study of 7,097 children published Monday in the journal JAMA Pediatrics. Quoted,
what does a baby even do on a phone? Are they smart enough to play games or watch videos, I guess? Interesting. Do 1-year-olds really even watch TV?
It's a really important study because it has a very large sample size of children who've been followed for several years, said Dr. Jason Nagata, Associate Professor of Pediatrics at the University of California, San Francisco, who was not involved in the study. Quote, the study fills an important gap because it identifies specific developmental delays in skills such as communication and problem solving associated with screen time, said Nagata, noting there haven't been many prior studies that studied this issue with several years of follow-up data. Now, I just want to emphasize this. 4 hours of screen time at age 1.
That's
4
outrageous.
Hours at age 1. Keep in mind that children...
I work on my computer because I run a YouTube channel, but I don't spend 4 hours on my phone per day.
Age 1, I mean, these...
Again, I'm on my computer, but phone or tablet, no, I don't really use it. I'm on my computer for my job, really. I don't know, honestly, like if I'm not doing it for my job, I do watch TV. I don't have a TV, so I watch that on my computer too. But still, like, yeah, it's crazy how much they have for a little kid, 4 hours. It's outrageous.
These are babies we're talking about. People are plopping their babies in front of screens for 4 hours, apparently. But children at that age, they typically nap twice a day. So you might get 3 or 4 hours of napping out of a baby. Most likely, also, you're putting them down for bed like at 8 or 8:30, maybe earlier. The point is that they're only awake for 7 or 8 hours a day, which means that 4 hours of screen time is half of their waking hours at the age of 1. And this is what parents are doing, apparently. And here are the results of that parenting decision. Quote,
they give them
the study measured how many hours children used screens per day at age 1 and how they performed in several developmental domains, communication skills, fine motor skills, personal and social skills, and problem-solving skills at ages 2 and 4. Both measures were according to the mother's self-reports. By age 2, those who had up to 4 hours of screen time per day were up to 3 times more likely to experience developmental delays in communication and problem-solving skills. Those who had spent 4 or more hours with screens were 4.8 times more likely to have underdeveloped communication skills, 1.7 times more likely to have subpar fine motor skills, and 2 times more likely to have underdeveloped personal and social skills by age 2. Potential harms of screen time on communication skills may have to do with children being robbed of drivers for language development. Technology use can take time away from interpersonal relationships that nurture social skills, since real people are more multidimensional than characters on a screen. Looking at people's faces is when our brains turn on to figure out how to interact with them. If children don't have enough time to play or are handed a tablet to pacify negative emotions, that can prevent the important developmental milestone that is the ability to navigate discomfort. Now, normally I'm skeptical of studies that depend on self-reported data, but that's because participants are inevitably biased in their own favor when self-reporting. What that means for this research is that actually the situation is probably much worse than what we're told. If parents are going to skew the data at all, they'll do it to undercount the amount of time their kids spend on screens and underestimate the developmental delays. It seems very unlikely that any parent would exaggerate the amount of screen time to make it sound like they plop their kids in front of screens more often than they really do. So the point is that the real story is even more concerning than what's presented here. It's especially the case when you zoom out and view the problem through a wider lens. Kids are put on screens as as we've now seen, practically from birth, and they'll stay on them through their entire childhoods, hardly taking a break, hardly ever looking up to take in the physical world around them. It's difficult to find reliable estimates on the average amount of time kids are spending on screens, in part because this data is, again, always going to be self-reported, and the people doing the self-reporting are incentivized to underestimate. But even with that limitation, the surveys I've seen all seem to agree that children between the ages of 8 and 18 spend on average around 8 or 9 hours a day on screens. I've seen some estimates that say 10 hours. And that's just for entertainment purposes. Doesn't count schoolwork. It's even harder to find reliable estimates for kids younger than 8, but we know that they don't suddenly jump on the screens at 8 years old and spend 8 hours on them. So we know that. And 8 or 9 hours of screen time is probably an extremely conservative estimate. Yet even taking it at face value, this would mean that millions of children are essentially spending every waking moment when they're not in school staring at screens. This is their whole life. And most of that time is spent on phones and tablets, not on the TV. A survey back in 2019 found that over half of kids in the U.S. have phones with internet access by the age of...
Yeah, that is interesting. Like a TV, they'll get up and play and move. If you're just stuck on a phone, you're probably just sitting on the couch, right, not moving. That's a really good point I never thought of before.
11. 20% of children have them before the age of 8. That's phones with internet access before the age of 8. It was in 2019, so we can be sure that those numbers have all gone up considerably in the 4 years since the survey was conducted. And although plenty of studies, including the most recent one, have revealed some of the damage this is doing to our kids, no study can paint a complete picture. We're only just now beginning to see what that looks like, what the full picture is, as the first generation of kids raised from birth on screens, smartphones, internet, begins to reach adulthood. And the results are quite dire, only getting worse over time. I mean, Gen Z is the fattest, loneliest, most depressed, most anxious, least motivated, least ambitious generation of human beings to ever live on the planet. All the statistics bear that out. They have difficulty forming human connections and relationships. They're mostly uninterested in even trying. They're deeply confused about themselves, about the world. Incredibly ignorant. Gender confusion has reached never-before-seen highs in this group. They spent their whole lives staring at screens. They never knew life without it. And that's having exactly the kind of impact that any rational person should expect. So why would parents set their children up for this? Why would you do this to your kid? Why would you intentionally put your child in a position where they will become totally addicted to and dependent on screens and unable to function as normal human beings in the world without them? Why would you actively ensure that your child has unfettered access to the internet, where he'll be exposed to all manner of ugliness and depravity and degeneracy, which he'll absorb and internalize during the formative years of his life? Why would you allow your child to spend 8, 9, 10 hours a day laying around and staring at a little glowing box instead of going out into the fresh air and having a real childhood, whether he likes it or not? Well, whatever answer parents might give, whatever they tell themselves, the truth is clear. I mean, they do it out of sheer laziness.
Yeah.
And some will actually admit this. Here's one mother on TikTok explaining in the very TikTok way why she gives her kids.
Because they're annoying?
Because they're annoying, she says. The video, she says, why would you give your kids tablets? She says, because they're annoying. Like, the kids are annoying. That's what she's saying. She's a bad mother. Why'd
you have kids?
She wanted to make a video to let everyone know that she's a bad mother. It was very important to let everyone know. Now, that video has 5,000 likes. Many mothers have jumped into the comment section to give their amens. One says, quote, LOL, I like your thinking. Totally guilty of this too. Another says, they really do be like that, though. It's the only thing besides sticking their hands in outlets that keeps them occupied. LMAO. Another says, as my kid sits there on her phone and I'm on my phone, silence. Another says, yes, I just bought the twins one. Many similar comments. And then there's this. Only full-time parents would understand.
Oh, is that what it is?
Well, I'm a full-time parent. I have 6 kids, all of them 10 and younger, 3 under 4 years old. None of them have phones or tablets. And I can guarantee you my wife and I have much busier lives than any of the women in that comment section, by a considerable margin probably. Now, look, we're not perfect parents by any stretch of the imagination, But the point is that parents who pull this, well, you'll understand when you're a parent. Yeah, you might judge parents for giving their kids tablets and having them on the screens, but yeah, when you're a parent, you'll understand. No, that's a cope. That's a rationalization. You are lazy and neglectful. You're more worried about making your kid shut up and leave you alone than actually raising him and helping him to become a good,
messed up. Why'd you even have kids?
Well-adjusted person. You're a parent who doesn't want to parent. And mostly you don't want to parent so that you can spend all of your time on your own screen.
I know. What is that?
Your entire home life is centered around the screen. The screen has cannibalized everything. It has defined you and your family. You're not even a family. You're just a collection of human beings living in the same house, staring at screens.
So dystopian.
Is this really the kind of life you want? Is this the kind of life you want your kid to have?
Evidently.
What is the point of a life that is spent doing nothing but staring mindlessly at a glowing box? These are the questions you should ask yourself. And if you're giving a tablet to your 1-year-old to spend hours a day on, then you really need to ask yourself this question. In the meantime, put down the screen. Take the screen away from your child. Take him outside. Play a board game with him. Play hide and seek. Have a conversation, if you can imagine. Read him a book. Do something, for God's sake. Love your child enough to pay attention to him for more than 30 seconds at a time. Takes a little bit of effort, but it's not so difficult as you think. It's worth a try at least. Otherwise, you're canceled.
You're canceled. Yeah, that's hilarious. This is just nuts. It's kind of, I want to say it's unbelievable, but that's terrible wording. It's crazy. This is what society's become. I don't know. I don't think kids having a tablet per se is like the worst, but yeah, exactly. When you just shove it in their face and okay, just go on your tablet. If your kid wants to play educational games and stuff, having access to the unfettered access to the internet is nuts until they're 13, maybe even 18, way older. There's so much crazy stuff and there's so many predators and everything out there. Why would you want your kids to be able to have access to that? But I always say phones and stuff, kids having phones, I don't think is that big of a, what if you need to reach your kid? And there's a lot of educational phone apps and stuff out there. But yeah, you need parental controls and stuff like that because kids are curious. Even if they know it's wrong, they're going to go do it because they don't really understand the consequences. They're kids. So they'll go and be like, oh, I want to try the internet. My friend Johnny, he has it. I want to go use it. Just talk to him. That's why you don't just give them a box. You say, okay, this is why you can't go on the internet. This is on there. It's harmful. It's scary. There's some good stuff. And then you could go on the internet together with them and be like, oh, this is what we can have. Let's teach them how to use it because that you kind of need it as a life skill nowadays. So I would say, and that's how the tablet is in general. You kind of want your kid to have some experience with it, I would think. But not having his kids have tablets, I definitely get it. But I don't like how the parents, they just give them their kids a tablet. They like the study was showing that it breaks motor skills, social skills. I could definitely see that. You're going to be scared of people if you're never interacting with people. Personally, when I hang out with people, when my friends come by and stuff, we never use screens and stuff unless it's UFC. We just chill, have a drink, and chill on the couch and just have conversation. That's what I like to do, so I'm like, that's what you should do with your kids, minus the drinking, obviously. But, just hang out, play, and have some conversation. You want to go on, watch TV at the end of the night, or maybe play a game here and there. I don't really see anything wrong with that. But 4 hours a day, it should be like an hour at night, if that. And not in most days, or a lot of days, you go out and do stuff. Take them out to do stuff. It's interesting. And a lot of these people live in cities and stuff too, probably. There's a lot of interesting stuff. I live in Austin. I see people bringing their kids to do stuff all the time, like downtown to the parks and stuff. That's awesome. Yeah, it's crazy that this is what people want to do to parent now. And they shouldn't even have kids. It sounds like they hate kids because your kids are annoying. Okay. That is just, maybe they're annoying because you don't give them any attention. So the only way you'll give them attention is if they're annoying. Did you ever think of that? But I will leave it there. Let's move on to the next story. NBC News claims climate change lockdowns are a conspiracy after they championed them in the past. Here's a clip.
How climate lockdowns became the new battleground for conspiracy-driven protest movements.
Conspiracy.
Protesters radicalized by their opposition to COVID lockdowns have a new target: anti-traffic measures. So they're already downplaying what the media themselves were saying over the past several years. There was an article in the New York Times that said
they taught people to believe in like climate change lockdowns, and now that they're like, oh, this is what the media talks about. That's a conspiracy. What are they talking about?
Because of the COVID
Idiots.
lockdowns, the Earth was healing.
Yes. Like that was something that I meant to bring up, is like the fact that like in the beginning of
Lockdowns
the
are healing
COVID
the
lockdown,
Earth.
it's like all of the people that are worried about the environment were just like, ooh, rubbing their hands together. Like, this is our shot. If we can get people to lock down, we can save the Earth. And I feel like they might have gotten the idea to lock down and no, actually, I'm not going to say that because they probably had it long before. So that's a bad idea.
Or you think that the two are connected, the climate and the COVID opportunity to lock people down?
No, I think that the idea for a climate lock, I was going to say that, or pontificate that the idea for a climate lockdown might have got started because of COVID, but then I thought about it and they probably had these plans started previous to that. So
yeah,
that's
I
why
would
I didn't
agree.
want to say it, but that was
Yeah, I think, slowing the rate of carbon dioxide production is okay, but if it's going to destroy or hinder humanity, I think that's the wrong tactic, because we can reuse the carbon dioxide, particularly to turn it into graphene and other materials. Reuse the methane also and turn it into carbon dioxide and graphene.
My problem with those kind of like global scale plans that people have, if they mess up, you're looking at a death toll in the billions.
You mean if they take too much carbon out of the air, they could kill all the trees and murder humanity?
Well, I mean, I don't know for sure, but like, Bill Gates' plan to blot out the sun, that is an actual legit plan that Bill Gates has been talking about. Like, I don't know if they're talking about using something to seed the clouds and make more clouds, or actually putting some kind of filter up there to block out the sun. But he's talked about it and he's serious. I think that's a terrible idea.
Awful.
Blocking the amount of sun that falls on the Earth seems like it only has a bajillion and a half ways that it can go wrong and kill people.
Yeah, that's true. But then Bill Gates can control how much sun the Earth gets. Why wouldn't Bill Gates want that? He wants to control everything. Farmland, medicine. Why not control how much sun people get?
That's the only way to beat the robots, man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you gotta blacken the skies.
Bro.
We don't know if it was us or the robots.
Yeah. Also, plant life relies heavily on sunlight.
I also think it's interesting because so many of these agendas, whether it's
I think that's really funny. Yeah, let's block out the sun, and then the plants that eat carbon and cool the planet, they won't get as much sunlight, so they won't be as effective. You can tell like the climate change thing and pollutants, getting pollutants out of the atmosphere isn't their goal. You can tell by stuff like that.
Economic Forum or the United Nations, for some reason, they all have seemed to identify the year 2030 as like their end goal,
Agenda
right?
2030,
Agenda
yeah.
2030.
Yeah,
and even the West has their
creepy.
own sort of like iteration of it that also concludes in 2030. China has their 2030 plan too. They also have a 2025 one, but I think it'll be really interesting. And that's why I think this election really is so pivotal, because I think the world, not just America, will take two very different trajectories, right? If you have someone like Donald Trump in office, I would argue that Agenda 2030 is not going to just get, carte blanche, blank sign off by Donald Trump to enforce it. Whereas if you have someone like Joe Biden, who empirically throughout the United Nations and the WHO pandemic treaty, his actions have shown that he's sort of on board with that. And a lot of his advisors are too. I think you will see two very, very different outcomes for the world writ large, depending on who wins this election cycle.
And I
given
really,
the timing.
I really think that even if like someone, and I don't really have I don't really care if it's Donald Trump or someone else, but if it is Donald Trump, like, I don't think that it's like a guarantee that he can navigate us through the coming tumultuous situation of the WEF trying to take over the world. I think that Donald Trump is just a maybe. If we go with a Democrat, it's a definite that we're going to do whatever it is that the international community wants. We lose our sovereignty.
And then if you get a real straight up principled libertarian, it's like guaranteed. It's like Trump is a maybe, libertarian, hell no, and then a liberal Democrat, hell yes. And there has to be a principled libertarian like Dave Smith or someone, not like Gary Johnson or someone like that.
If we elect a Democrat, because they don't they don't push back against the international community. So whatever the international community wants is what the United States does, regardless of what the American people want.
Let me pull this up from Wikipedia just so you understand Agenda 2030. This is from Wikipedia, Sustainable Development Goals from the UN. They say it's their global goals or sustainable development goals are a collection of 17 interlinked objectives designed to serve as a shared blueprint for peace and prosperity.
17 is a magic number, Jim Lindsay says too.
Oh, yeah, for people and the planet now and into the future. They say it was formulated in 2015 by the UN General Assembly as part of the post-2015 development agenda. They say they were formally articulated and adopted in a UNGA resolution called the 2030 Agenda, known colloquially as Agenda 2030. So when you hear people saying this, you're going to get the media saying it's one big conspiracy theory. It's all nonsense. And what they're going to do is
not a conspiracy.
They're going to ignore the actual complaints people have about the mission of the UN, and they'll hyper-focus on some random crackpot in an alley who's screaming that Agenda 2030 is trying to steal moon cheese. And they'll be like, these crazy conspiracy theorists think the earth is flat. And then the average person who's like, hey, this is a bit alarming to me because we're a sovereign nation that shouldn't be giving over our rights to an international body, they will omit that from the news reports.
That's the same type of thing that they did with the whole like Jeffrey Epstein stuff and then the pizza place. Like
and then like the Trump thing too. It's just like, look at these crackpot Trump supporters, and it's like, guy you find out it's not even a Trump supporter.
They use the crazy guy going to the pizza place to deflect from like Epstein actually getting arrested and going and the trial, and him actually being found guilty of human trafficking and stuff. They were using the Pizza Gate stuff to discredit the idea that there were actually
and what's that Pizza Gate guy that went and did that? Wasn't he connected to the Fed somehow, if I remember correctly?
Everyone knows that Epstein had been, found guilty of trafficking, that Ghislaine has been found. Yeah, he cut some deal, but
early on, yeah.
But everyone knows that was the situation. Everyone knows that there have been no names released, and yet people still will say things like, "Oh, Pizzagate." You're thinking that it's kind of crazy to think that there are people in the government that are pedophiles. There's multiple court cases that have been found.
Oh, no, that's not Joe Biden.
It wasn't like Prince Andrew directly implicated.
Prince Andrew couldn't wear certain clothing at the funeral of the Queen because of his embarrassing the royal family. Like he couldn't wear his official cape or something like that. I think it was military dress. I'm not sure what it was, but there was official stuff that the prince should have been able to wear.
Yeah, it's like ceremonial.
Yeah, but he disgraced them.
Look at this. Goal number 1 is no poverty. That's not
by
possible.
2030.
Poverty is relative. A poor person
I was
today
about
has
to say
better
that.
dental care than Rockefeller did 100 years ago, 100 and some odd years ago.
Yep.
So that's like it's an impossible thing to say. Zero hunger. Let's hold on. Let me tell you about.
Supposed to be hungry sometimes.
I know.
Yeah.
Hunger is a good thing.
I intermittent fast. I don't eat for 16 hours a day. It's like I'm hungry during that. It's like whatever.
Tells you that you need to put food in your stomach. Right. I'm going to approach this from the view of Ultron, the rogue AI that was trying to wipe out humanity. How do you end poverty? They say goal number 1 is to end poverty in all its forms everywhere. It would end poverty globally. One of its indicators is the proportion of population living below the poverty line. Now, you see, these lefties and these corporate journalists or whatever might see that and say, oh, I get it. If they give all the poor people more access and money, they'll be above the poverty line. And then all of the international elites look at each other like, sure. And what they're actually envisioning is the poverty line is the cutoff point where they excise that portion of the population, and then there's no poor people anymore. Then they say zero hunger. Same thing. How do you get rid of hunger? Anyone who's hungry, gotta go. You know what I'm saying? Good health and well-being. Anyone who's not, gotta go. Quality education. Once again, those who are not getting quality education, you got to go.
And wait, before you go on, anyone that says that about getting rid of people that are in good health, look at what Canada's doing now with MAID. Like when you first hear it, you think, oh, it would never happen.
MAID is like euthanasia. They can you just go get them to lethal injection you essentially.
But if you think real quick, oh, wait a minute, it's literally happening in Canada. They are encouraging people that are a burden to the system to kill themselves. This is not far-fetched. This is not imaginary.
It's happening.
This is exactly what a lot of the NGOs want to see happen.
I think I saw recently it's like already 1 to 3% somewhere. Maybe it's like 1% of all deaths in Canada already from this MAID program. It's like, what?
The idea that nations should end and we should be a global community and a global country or whatever you want to call it.
I got to be honest. Like, if you were to look through this, population reduction does seem to be a general path towards accomplishing a lot of these goals.
Absolutely.
Let's think about this. How do you get rid of poverty? Well, if we have mechanization and automation, and you remove a large portion of the population through MAID or whatever, or through even degrowth. Like, this is the thing people need to understand about this. They assume, and the media would want you to assume this, that there's a conspiracy theory where the global elites are going to go around killing people. It's like, okay, well, maybe with medical assistance and dying or in death or whatever up in Canada, you have something like that. But it's really just like, don't have kids, abort your kids, sterilize your kids, take birth control. That's degrowth. That is one way to achieve the goal. It's did you guys ever play?
Yeah, those transgender surgeries. They sterilize you. What a shocker.
We talked about this before. Fallout.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, play them all.
I can't remember which one it was, but in the end, one of the endings is, for those that aren't familiar, it's a post-apocalyptic world wiped out by nukes. There's a gigantic, super intelligent mutant being who says, you can choose to, I'll let you go and you can live, but you have to be sterilized so that you can't reproduce anymore because you're old world or something to that effect.
I think that's the first one.
Yeah, I think so. So the general idea is, no, you're mistaken. No one wants to reduce population. They just don't want you to have kids. And then in 20, 30 years, population will have been reduced.
Tell me about degrowth.
Degrowth is essentially, so the way that the argument goes is our capitalist society depends on infinite growth, right? It has to keep growing because we keep having more people. We have to keep producing, and we live on a finite Earth. We live on an Earth with a limited amount of resources, and we are going to use them up. So what we need to do is we have to have a net zero impact on the environment. So that means we don't have an impact. Net zero means a totally zero impact on the environment. And you're going to achieve that through degrowth, which means you have to have a contraction of the economies of the countries on the planet. Your GDP is directly related to your life expectancy. Every point of GDP that your country goes down, there is a corresponding number of deaths that happen. So degrowth means population shrinking. And that is intentional. Now it starts off, and I'm looking back to the first half of the 20th century. Eugenics and population control and these types of man controlling society with big plans like they're talking about here, these type of programs will start off with one mandate and one idea, and they grow. And I hate to do this because I don't want people to be like, oh, everyone compares it, but like the stuff that Hitler did to the Jews in Nazi Germany didn't start off with grab them and throw them into the concentration camps. It started with, okay, you got to wear these patches. It starts small. So the idea of we have to do things to contract, the government has to do things to contract, they will start small. And as it doesn't work as fast as they want, and as there are people that will push back, they will continue to up their efforts, and you will end up with, I imagine, billions dead.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast.
Probably, yeah. This whole Agenda 2030 stuff, it's wild. And they sit here and act like they want to do it to help people, but they don't. It's just a goal for the Earth and for climate change and all of this stuff. It was awesome on the debate stage when Vivek Ramaswamy said it's a hoax, and then everyone you could hear the mics, the donor class, they were all booing, like, don't tell anyone this, because like people have mentioned a lot. Where's Greta Thunberg going after China? How come no one? China just upped its coal after COVID, just went ham on coal again. What about India? They're the biggest polluters by far. But nobody cares about that. They just want the U.S. to get rid of their stuff. The U.S. is the most wealthy, so I guess it makes sense. You get rid of the most wealthy country, you lower the economy, the fewer exports, and then you get, less wealthy people, less population. And that's obviously what they're going for. But I'll leave it there. Let's move on to the next story. What does Putin get from Snowden for protecting him? Here's a clip.
Either Joe Biden is the
that's
most
not
clever person in the world and did nothing wrong.
Whoops. Looks like I messed it up. We're doing it live. Oh, no, there we go. What's going on here? What is going on here? We're doing it live, folks. We're doing it live.
The average skeptical person who's paranoid would I think it'd be a...
Let's go back and redo this for the YouTube clip. Sorry about that. I don't know what even happened there. Just played the wrong clip. What does Putin get from Snowden for protecting him? Let's play a clip.
The average skeptical person who's paranoid would I think it'd be a fair question to ask, knowing how Putin is, and for Snowden to live in Russia feeling safe, why would he be safe? Does Putin follow the guidance of whistleblower protection, whatever, or is he keeping him safe because Snowden is giving him information? You know, these are very honest questions that some people are wondering.
Yep.
Why is Snowden safe in Russia, led by a guy like Putin?
So let me explain this. So,
interesting question.
First of all, the idea that Snowden would give information that would help another country surveil on its citizens in order to be kept out of prison, or worse, is inconsistent with everything that Snowden did in his life. When we were working with Snowden in Hong Kong, I would say the percentage chance that we assigned to the fact that at the end of that process, he was going to end up in American custody in an orange jumpsuit, and we were never going to hear from him again because he would be disappeared to a supermax prison for the next 40 years. We had a probability of 90 to 95%. That was it was a miracle that he escaped the clutches of the American government. That happened through a series of very improbable acts. So Snowden already proved he would be willing to go to prison, give up his liberty for the rest of his life in order to make it much more difficult for states to surveil. Having shown that he's willing to go to prison to prevent surveillance, why would he then turn around weeks later and make the exact opposite calculation that I'm willing to help the Russians surveil in order to stay out of prison? That makes no sense. That's the first thing. Okay. The second thing is, when there was a time, you know, and I know this is a long ago history, but when Snowden picked Hong Kong because it was kind of a city of resistance to him, of resistance to Chinese tyranny, but it was also a place he knew that the U.S. government would have a hard time getting us. So it was kind of he put a lot of thought into the place that he wanted us to work with him. And at the time, people were saying he was a Chinese spy because he had gone to Hong Kong. When he ended up leaving Hong Kong, his intention was to go to South America, where he was getting asylum either in Bolivia or in Ecuador. He was going to fly through Moscow on his way to Havana and then onto Latin America. And the Biden administration, or rather the Obama administration, and they boast about this, bullied the Cubans and said, if you want a deal to get rid of that embargo, no chance if you allow Snowden safe passage.
They never got rid of the embargo, did they?
Still
can't get cigars
in the Moscow airport. He spent 48 days trapped in the Moscow airport in this international zone before they would let him into Moscow. And the whole time, I was certain that the U.S. would be able to offer the Russians whatever they wanted because they were desperate to get their hands on Snowden. I don't know if you remember, but they thought that he was on the plane of the Bolivian president, Evo Morales. They had a hunch when he was coming back from Russia. They forced down the plane of a sovereign president, Evo Morales, on the hunch that he had Snowden on that plane with him when he was coming back. That's how badly they wanted Snowden. So I thought, okay, they're going to offer the Russians, we have, 12 Russian prisoners that you want back. We're willing to give them to you. We're willing to make this concession, that concession. I thought for sure that was going to happen, and it didn't happen. I went to Moscow the next year. I met with Snowden. I did a panel with some Russian media and Russian government officials.
A Wikipedia entry on that. Evo Morales grounding incident. Yeah, it's interesting. On July 1st, 2013, President Evo Morales of Bolivia, who had been attending a conference of gas exporting countries in Russia, gave an interview to RT television network in which he appeared predisposed to offer asylum to Edward Snowden. Okay. Yeah, forced landing. According to Australian statements, the pilots requested emergency landing due to issues with fuel level indicators, causing inability to confirm there was sufficient fuel to continue flight. Interesting. Oh, sorry, Austria, not Australia, right? Austrian, yeah, sorry about that. Austria's deputy counselor, Michael Spendeliger, said that the plane was searched, although the Bolivian defense minister denied a search took place. Interesting. Saying Morales had denied entry to his plane. The request for entry into French, Spanish, and Italian airspace, ostensibly for technical reasons, strongly denounced by Bolivia, Ecuador, and other South American nations, were attributed to rumors disseminated by the U.S. that Snowden was on board. Spanish Minister of Foreign Affairs Jose Garcia Margallo publicly stated that. Then it cuts off. How interesting.
And I was asking everybody that, why couldn't that deal be reached? Why didn't they make a deal for Snowden? And what they told me were two things. Number one, the U.S. and the Russian political class hate each other so much going back for decades that they would rather, avoid deals in their interest than make deals in their interest. But the real reason is that Putin could not give Snowden back to the U.S. It would be considered a deeply un-Russian thing to do, because one of Russia's kind of national attributes is they have always been a refuge for dissidents from the West. You do something against the West, you get refuge in Russia. That's something that's crucial politically to Russians, to their sense of their identity. And there was just no way Putin politically, I know he's considered a totalitarian. He's not a totalitarian in the sense of, North Korea or Saudi Arabia. He answers to political classes. There are dissidents in Russia. There are oppositional parties. And it's just too contrary to how Russia functions and operates. Finally, Snowden wasn't traveling with the archive. He knew not to travel internationally with the archive. He not only didn't have the archive, but the passwords that he had were scattered around the world because he wanted to avoid, even if someone tried to torture him, being able to give access to that information, because he had already proven he was willing to have the worst possible outcome happen to him rather than give up information. Why are you skeptical of that?
I don't know. So for me, okay, so let's just say my daughter is 22 years old, okay? And one of my guys I've known who is 40 years old, okay, who is a full-blown playboy, okay? Mm-hmm. And my daughter says, Dad, he's just a friend, And I'm like, baby, I trust you. I don't trust him. Uh-huh. He's going to flirt with you. And he's very good at getting you to flip and, fall in love with them for a night or whatever. Let's just say that guy's not a friend. He's a colleague, but I know who his DNA is, right? Okay. Even worse, if he's not an ally and he's an enemy and he wants to find a way to do something to you and he's going to figure out any ways to go do that to you. Okay. In this situation, let's just say I trust Snowden. I don't trust Putin. And if we were to give an asset, if America, Joe Biden, got Brittany Griner for Victor, what's his last name, Bout, or, Victor, however he says his last name. Killer. Right. You mean to tell me Putin couldn't have said, you give me Victor, I'll give you Snowden? Yeah, I mean, Victor's pretty powerful to have that.
But why didn't that happen? They had Snowden in their clutches in that international airport. Yeah. Why didn't they reach a deal with the Americans
I'll tell you my opinion
give
why.
us everything and we'll give you Snowden
back?
But
I'll tell you why I wouldn't do it. If you're Putin, Snowden is way more powerful to have than Victor Bout. So it's like saying, hey, let's trade cards. I'll give you a Mickey Mantle rookie card for a freaking, John Cangelosi rookie card. You're going to say, who the hell is John Cangelosi? I'm going to say, well, go look him up. He was a second baseman who hit 230 or whatever he was, right? Okay. So, yeah, you're not going to give Mickey for John Cangelosi. This is Mickey Mantle, Snowden. You need Snowden. You need
because
that.
of his secrets.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah. Okay, but let me ask you this. So
this is your world. I want to know your art because you're the right guy to talk about.
No, absolutely. I know Snowden extremely well. So why do we know the name of Edward Snowden? Why do people around the world consider what Snowden did to be heroic? The reason is because what he did was extremely likely to result in the imprisonment for the rest of his life at the age of 29. Not very many people.
They would have killed him.
Or death.
Exactly.
His life, 100%, just like you.
The best case scenario,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
They were threatening to imprison me and Laura Poitras, the reporter with whom I was working. So imagine what they would have done to Snowden. The sky was the limit. Look at what they're doing to Julian Assange. Snowden knew that. Snowden took that risk. When I first talked to Snowden, I said to him, look, I didn't know how much he knew. I didn't know how sophisticated it was. I didn't know his age, but I felt like it was my responsibility as a journalist, thinking maybe I'm dealing with somebody with mental health issues, with some kind of skewed vision. I made very clear to him, I said, look, you're committing multiple serious felonies. This is the greatest national security leak in the history of the United States. You understand you're almost definitely going to end up in an American prison, and not a nice American prison, for the rest of your life. He said, that's the risk I've already decided that I'm willing to take. So already Snowden is somebody operating with a completely different moral framework than the vast majority of people, including most of us. I'm not somebody who's saying I'm willing to, I mean, I did take risks, but my risk wasn't anywhere near the risk that Snowden took. I was the role of the journalist, I had First Amendment protections, lots of other different considerations. So he had just proven
Snowden was a whistleblower.
He's willing to go to
journalist.
prison for the rest of his life in pursuit of this cause being preventing the internet from becoming this zone of mass surveillance.
Sure, yeah.
Why a month later, Putin comes to him, or whoever, the FSB comes to him and says, you give us this information or we're removing that asylum and we're going to let the Americans take you to prison. Why does he then a month later make exactly the opposite moral calculation and say, you know what, actually, I don't want to go to prison enough to give you this information. I'd rather give you this information and avoid prison. He just proved he was willing to go to prison for the rest of his life in order to not help a state be able to further surveil. So
for my opinion on what he's saying is, I get where he's coming from, but if Snowden gave Putin the stuff, Snowden just wanted it to be out there so everyone knew about it. So he could have just given Putin extra information. You know, he makes a good point. He doesn't care about going to prison. Yeah, but all he wanted is it to be out there. So, I mean, it's already out there. So he might just be like, okay, I'll give you a few extra things. Who cares? We'll just put it out eventually. And yeah, I mean, he would have put everything out in America and stayed in America if he could have just not went to prison in America.
The idea that he would have given this information to Putin to stay out of an American prison or a Russian prison is totally, again, the fact that he didn't end up in American prison was the biggest fluke possible. The government of Hong Kong stuck its middle finger up at the United States when the United States demanded that he not be able to leave for its own reasons. Snowden had proven that the U.S. was spying on Hong Kong. His moral framework, the one under which he was operating, the reason it's heroic is because it's so radically different than the one that we rationally. So why would why would the United States government's threats not deter Snowden from leaking that information, but the Russian government's threats would make him give up information to help the Russians spy better on their own citizens?
Because Russians didn't destroy his life. American government did, because Russia didn't destroy his life. America did. So to me, look, I'm just a naturally curious guy that's asking questions from a guy that's the you're the expert in this. You're the one that knows more about this than anybody else because you were the guy that broke the story. So I'm talking to the source. Right. Yeah, no, for me, I think it's a healthy level of skepticism to have with that. By the way, I am thankful for Snowden. I'm thankful for what he did. I'm grateful for what he did. I'm in levels that words can't even describe. God knows what he did. He ruined his life, man. He would say at 29 years old. There's a level of patriotism that goes with that, but it's complicated as well, right? It's always the whistleblower from the other side you hate. You always like the whistleblower from your side.
Right.
So it's easy to be like, well, can't believe what he's doing. And you saw everybody on the media, this is not something he should be doing. If you love America, you should not be supporting what Snowden's. I don't know if you remember that. CNN was saying it, and everybody was saying it at that time.
Of course I remember
that clearly. Yeah. All I'm saying is, why is he there? With a Putin's camp approach and say, for the rest of your life, you're protected as if you're a president. We're going to give you that kind of protection for the rest of your life. And if you're not going to give us any intel that's already public, maybe teach us mechanisms on how they were investigating on the people for us to know how to investigate, and maybe his moral compass doesn't hurt him to say, well, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just going to show you how they did it, and then you do whatever you want to do with it, but this is how the government was investigating on its people. Maybe that's something where he's like, I don't feel bad about doing something like this. I don't know.
I totally get the skepticism, and from the distance, I'd likely have the same, questions. The issue, of course, is I can't prove the negative,
Sure,
right?
totally.
So I can't
I get
prove
it.
to you Snowden didn't do it. All I can tell you is I have, I spent a lot of time, like very intense, immersive time with Snowden. In all of those days we were in Hong Kong doing this work. I've maintained a very close friendship with him since. I talk to him, with a great amount of regularity. That's not a particularly persuasive thing to say, take my word for it. I understand Snowden's ethical code. I think the only thing I can ask people to do is look at the actual evidence of what his conduct has been. And the other thing is, there is that Russian code that I know that I didn't understand until I went and talked to a bunch of people. But if you look at the Cold War, whenever there were people who felt persecuted by Western governments or who became spies, they always were given refuge in Russia from the West for as long as they wanted to until the day that they died. It's a part of the Russian moral code. I talked to the head of RT, on whom I was with a panel, and I asked.
The difference is the Cold War is over though, and they didn't even went to Ukraine or anything. So Russia and the United States were allies. So I guess their code, but they, like you just said, if they're spies, well, of course. I mean, what would America do during the Cold War, right? If Russian people became like double agents and, we're going to spy on Russia for you, of course they're going to give them protection if they get caught. But that was in the Cold War.
That question, I interrogated her about that because I genuinely didn't understand why the U.S. and Russia didn't reach a deal to turn Snowden over. And that was what she was trying to get me to understand, was it would be a very un-Russian thing to do, to take a political dissident who wants refuge in Russia and turn them over to the United States. It's not something that you can understand if that's not part of the code.
You ever been to Crustaceans in Beverly Hills, the restaurant?
Probably not.
Okay. Would love to take you. It's incredible. Unbelievable food. They have 2 kitchens there.
Uh-huh.
One of them is the kitchen for the On family. Okay, the recipes that they've created, like their garlic noodles, which when you eat, you age backwards. It's like Benjamin Button. The other kitchen is for the average people to go in, people like you and I, okay, if we work there. You cannot go in the kitchen unless if you're part of the On family, okay? So what does this mean? Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Russia is thankful for it, but listen, you ain't Russian, bro. You know what I'm saying? You're Snowden.
Yeah,
so there's a level of skepticism I think a president or any prime minister would have for anyone that's a whistleblower, because in the back of the mind of that prime minister or president is, this guy's a whistleblower. You know what I'm saying? I mean, great job for what you did, but shit. You could whistleblow on anybody.
Yeah.
So we got to be also protective of your abilities to whistleblow. I don't know if you understand, like if I'm communicating my thoughts properly or not.
For sure.
They
don't trust him.
Yeah, I mean.
That's an interesting point.
Yeah. Like, you know how a guy that says something like this, okay? He'll say, look, just between us, okay? Just between us. And then you test him 3 times, and you leak him information, inaccurate information. And then he tells 3 other people. Guess what he just did? He just validated to you he can't keep information. And it's not hard to test stuff like this with people. It's very easy. If I do it on a small level with a company or a sales organization or family or friends, like anytime I wanted to know which one of my friends that I went to high school with, I just would talk to them. I would tell them certain private things, and I would say, just please keep it between us. If I got 3 people that called me, I already knew who that guy was.
Right.
Okay. So either I intentionally leak information that I want to be leaked, or I just realize you can't fully
trust that person.
You cannot.
No, and that's interesting. When first of all, I think the starting point for all of this discussion should always be, why is it that Edward Snowden, having not only leaked information, but done so in the most responsible way, right? Like he could have sold the information to a foreign government and gotten millions and millions of dollars. That archive was extremely valuable.
That is true.
He could have dumped it all over the internet. Instead, he came to us, and when he came to us, he was adamant that we agree to conditions that I even found repressive about how he didn't want any information published that could ever even potentially put a single person in harm's way. He was a very conservative whistleblower. He imposed on us a lot of restrictions about things that I thought we should have been able to publish that he didn't want published. There were things the New York Times ended up publishing from that archive that he was indignant about, that he thought should never have been published, about how we spy on China. So he was somebody who did this in the most responsible way possible, didn't dump it on the internet, didn't sell it to a foreign adversary, came to journalists, asked us to curate it in a very responsible way, which we did. There was no suggestion that anything we ever published harmed anybody, put anybody in harm's way. The first question should be, why is somebody like that forced to live their life in exile in Russia? Because the minute they come back to the United States, they're going to be put in prison for the rest of their life. Having said that, I understand your question. Again, I can't prove the negative. I guess all I can tell you is that even the information that Snowden would have to give, Snowden was not the deputy director of the NSA. Snowden was a somewhat low-level contractor who worked at Booz Allen. What he had that was valuable was access to the archive, where was the documents and not so much what Snowden had to say. Most of our reporting was based on the document. Yeah. If you don't have access to that archive, there's not much that Snowden can even give you that's of value. And he wasn't carrying with him the archive and thumb drives with a piece of paper that contained the password. He purposely made it extremely difficult because he didn't want to be put in the position where somebody could force him to turn over that information.
Look, I will tell you on this topic, and we can transition to the next topic.
Sure.
But I appreciate you, having this exchange with me on this topic.
It's interesting because couldn't they torture him or threaten his family or something, and then he'll just go get the passwords and thumb drives where, he knows they are. I'm not disagreeing with him. I don't know one way or the other, but it's an interesting question to ask.
This isn't about Snowden. I'm not putting this on Snowden.
Right, you're on Putin.
I'm putting this on how Putin views an American. Dude, you're not priority to me. You're not Russian. This is not your motherland. You don't love this place like I love it. Gorbachev, Yeltsin, this is like the greatest country in the world. He views that. I mean, Putin is a
Russian nationalist.
A Russian nationalist. So for him, he's going to always, and by the way, the best leaders ever are typically more paranoid and skeptical than the average leader. If I can come and betray you once and kind of do it again and again and again, you're weak. But if I can come and betray you once and you still are able to entertain a relationship, but there's filters that you can't go through certain rails, certain things you can't enter anymore, I respect that leader. And I put Putin as a formidable leader. I don't put Putin as a lightweight. I don't put Putin as he wants to be complimented and you can win him over with flattery. He's not weak. He's a true G who he is. So, but I trust my enemies way more than I trust my allies. And here's what I mean by that. I know my competitors, anytime I built any businesses, whether it was insurance or whatever I did, I knew my enemy woke up every morning wanting to put me out of business. I respect that. I knew my enemy woke up every day wanting to make sure I went bankrupt. I respect that. I'm not upset at it. I actually totally get it. If you play, you're fighting somebody in the streets, guess what the guy is going to do? You have to assume the guy wants to beat the living crap out of you, right? So that's not a naive or place coming from where it's like, well, I'm trying to be antagonistic. No, I just think this is the enemy. Here's how he views it.
So if you like this clip and you want to watch another one,
it's a very, very interesting conversation. Yeah, I don't know one way or the other. I could see Snowden maybe giving him stuff. It is a good question. Like, what is he giving him? Is it just Putin's just, okay, I don't like the West and it's a refuge? Or, yeah, maybe he did give him stuff here and there. Maybe he does. And I could see just Putin keeping him there just to piss off America, though. I mean, I guess. It's like, hey, look at, we have some leverage over you. And I guess also, what if they ever did do a deal? What if they really needed something from the United States? Hey, you want Snowden back? Hey, you want us to leave Ukraine and, but we got Snowden. At this point, the United States I don't think would care about Snowden that much. But it is interesting he's been there for so long and they've kept him there. But nowadays, yeah, I mean, if I could see like Putin saying that, hey, if you want us to end the war in Ukraine, you give us the Donbass region, okay, and then we give you Snowden. They'll be like, hell no. No, we don't care about Snowden. We care about BlackRock now. I mean, we've moved. That ship has sailed. So then, what is Putin going to do? Just kill Snowden? It's just like, okay, that's not a good look either, And then he does lose some leverage because maybe the U.S. doesn't care now, but maybe they care later. I don't know. It is a very interesting question, though. That is for sure. But how do you know the answer to it? Nobody really knows. But it's an interesting conversation. But I think I will leave it there. All right, everyone. I think I'm going to call it a night here. Definitely appreciate you joining me as always. I'm going to try to hit the noon time tomorrow or on Tuesday. Normally, I'm trying to do noon Central, 1 Eastern time, but I'm a one-man band here, so I clip all the clips by myself, so it takes a long time to clip them and post them to social media. It takes like 20 to 30 minutes a piece, and I do 10 segments, so you do the math. And then it takes me a few hours to find new stories, make sure the clips are good, prep them into my software. So it's a lot of work. So now you're just we're on the clock. Once you get on a schedule, like I've done this schedule the last 3 days, it's a lot of work still, but trying to go and do basically 2 days of work in 1 day to get caught up, I'm just going to have to get like no sleep one night and just get it done. But you can see why it's kind of complicated to do it. But I appreciate you joining me here late night. I appreciate it if you subscribe, follow whatever platform you're watching on. I definitely appreciate it. I hope to catch you again real soon. Always make sure we join in the chat as much as possible. I see some of you guys in the chat, but you got to give me a little bit more context because I want to do like a 10, 20, 30 minute chat segment if I kept going over time so much. But if I do it during the day, if it hits 2.5 hours instead of 2 hours, I'm okay with that. But you got to give me context because I want to do a chat segment at the end. But right now, I've just started this episode 6 on day 6. So I think it'll take probably 30 to 60 days to really get enough people watching and chatting enough so we can like have certain discussions about stuff. I'm really looking forward to doing that. So keep that in mind. Tell your friends about the show, the David Carson Show. Definitely appreciate it. And yeah, let's keep growing it. Let's get some news out there. Let's inform people. That's why we have the show. Be entertaining, have discussions, and bring people the real news. All right, everyone. I definitely appreciate it. I'm going to head out now, and I will catch you in the next one. All right. Peace out.